If you're just getting into long-range hunting or you're looking to increase your skills as a marksman, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Extreme Outer Limits podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. I'm your host, and for the next hour, we've got a real treat. We're going to be talking with Bob Beck and Extreme Outer Limits. Just a really great facility here to be able to do a lot of things that we couldn't do as a radio show. And this kind of is going to be a simulcast as a radio show, and it's also going to go out on the Extreme Outer Limits podcast network as their podcast. I've got as you can see on the screen, I've got some stocks. We're going to talk a little bit about that has to do with Extreme Outer Limits, and we're going to share that with him. I want to introduce Bob Beck. Those of you who have listened to our show know he's been on our show a couple of times, and I'm part of the Extreme Outer Limits podcast. So the viewers of Extreme Outer Limit podcast know who I am. So, Bob, why don't you come on and say hi and get us rolling for your side of it?
Well, thanks for having me again. If I'm not mistaken, I think, was I the first guest?
Absolutely. The very first guest.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up, but I was like, I don't know if that's for sure or not. But other than that, I mean, this is your show, your program. And what I like about where we're going with these podcasts and radio shows, especially the visual ones, is that we can really demonstrate the product or explain the product or even showcase the product that you just don't necessarily have time for when you're running about 22 and a half minutes of content in an episode. So this is really cool.
Because we have the control of this and we're just demonstrating it to you, we can do some things that you can't.
I guess we'll just let it out of the bag. When we run this as a podcast, I think there's a vast amount of the world that doesn't know that television shows or outdoor television shows, I think they have the idea that we get paid to be on TV. And that's completely false, right? We get sponsors or partners, and those sponsors and partners are the ones chipping in against the airtime bill and the hunt costs and tires and fuel and tags and all the stuff that it takes to make a TV show. And it's so hard to communicate a message that is beyond the scenes, so to speak, of a TV show about how it actually works. This platform here, I think, is going to help all of us because the reality is, as much as it might sound awkward to say, the only way we can keep this big advertisement vehicle rolling down the road is by creating and selling good quality products. And when you're trying to keep a 22-minute episode entertaining, you don't necessarily want to conk your viewer over the head with a bunch of information. By the way, buy this. By the way, buy that. Or by the way, did you see this? You want to take them on the hunt and make them feel like they're engaging into your show and into your program, and not becoming a fan because I need my ego pumped for being a host. I could care less about that. But to try to become great clients in the long run. And that is so hard to describe or to say in a television program. But to be able to go to the podcast or go to your radio show with a format like this, where we can take and actually, like you have stocks on the table and say, hey, this is what McMillan Stocks is doing right now. This is our new releases. This is, all the technical specs of it. And then, maybe lead into where we're going in the future. That is invaluable to be able to get that message out there, because we're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes or anything like that. We're just trying to communicate a message.
I was glad you brought that up, because that's something I've never talked about. People think I'm getting paid to do this. Well, if I could get paid to do this, it'd be a lot more fun.
I think, we talked a little bit about this yesterday when we were just on our cell phones, but what you're saying matches up. It kind of reinforces where I'm wanting to go. So I love these things because I get to let cats out of the bag all the time that I don't get to do on TV. But we are doing a new site called Hunt Long Range. And there will always be naysayers in everything that you do because they always think that you're just out to make the buck. But the reality is we're just trying to run a good quality business and have good quality product. But what the purpose of the site's going to be is, as Extreme Outer Limits is building in its premier hunts. That's kind of a division of our company, whether it's the camps we own or what we're doing. And we're getting clients involved in our hunts. What we're going to try to do with Hunt Long Range is we're going to brand it as a site that you come to, whether it be premium mule deer, premium elk, there'll be some bear, some moose, some other items on there to hunt. And then we'll be able to, for the guys looking for finer products, we're going to actually create video content and maybe run live streams like this with, whether it be you when there's stock questions, or maybe it's, benchmark if it's barrels, or jewel if it's triggers, or whatever, right? But we can get that content in place. So when a guy is, we're going to kind of run it from the hunt starting first, because that's, again, like I said, it's kind of a little saying, brings everybody to the party, right? Everybody wants to go hunting. What do you want to hunt? Okay, we want to hunt elk. You want to hunt mule deer? Okay, well, you're going to click on that species, and then we're going to have a recommended gear list. And it's not recommended just because we threw gum at the wall. It's recommended because I've had extremely good success over a lot of years of doing this at a high intensity level, right? We do so many hunts per year to film so many TV shows, which means we're harvesting way more than average, quantity of animals for the guy that has, a normal day-to-day job. So these are vetted, as you say. This is a vetted gear list. So maybe we could say mule deer equates to this rifle, equates to this optic, equates to this ammo with this bullet. We could even get it down to pack choices, sport optics choices, boot options, all those things. And like you said, we're not trying to, kill it in the retail world. We're just trying to make a fair market, but a fair value to run a fair business and be able to provide a customer with exactly what they need on their hunt. Because after they book the hunt, you'd be surprised how many emails you get, because everybody starts to either second guess what they do have, or maybe it's time to upgrade, or maybe their boots are wore out, whatever it is. They need to get some gear because they're preparing for that hunt and they've got all summer to do it. So I'm totally on board. It sounds like we're coming at this from two directions, right? You're coming in on the extreme long range, or extreme long range shooting side, and I'm coming in on the hunting side, but I think we're trying to achieve the same goal.
The really cool thing about you, Bob, and I noticed this right off when we first met, you think about things very similarly to the way I think about them. And I really liked what you said. And people, they'll say, yeah, they're just saying this. They're on a podcast, and they want people to think what they want them to think, so that they're trying to form their opinion. But the fact is you and I run our businesses very similar. We want to provide a very good product and a very good service. And the money will come. No getting around it. If we can't be successful, we won't stay in business very long. But if we put out the very best product that we can and provide the very best service, and you go even a couple of steps further by thinking outside the box and bringing in outfitters, and you've invested in outfitting simply to be able to give your customers that total experience. You went out and started putting on schools, and it started out a couple 1 year, and it's blossomed to what, one every weekend for almost 3 months?
16.
Yeah, 16 classes. And that's how many people are really interested in learning how to shoot long range and learning from somebody who does it on a daily basis. So I love you for that. That's one of the reasons why I consider you a good friend, because I love the way you think. And we seem to have a lot in common when it comes to how we want to run our business and how we want our customers to think of us.
Well, I appreciate the good word. And obviously, that you probably had a little bit to do. I mean, you've kind of been a mentor since back before 2010 when this all started. But no, I do appreciate it. I think I just regard it as, I've always kind of joked and said, I might hit my head on the wall once, and I might hit it on the wall twice, but I'm not going to do it the third time. And what I mean by that is I try to stay focused and really hone in on the things that work and what doesn't work. And I try to always put myself in the other shoes. If I was on your side of the fence, what would I want? And I try to never lose track of the roots of how the business even continues to go, right? It's all based on the customer. It's all based on the service. I say it all the time at the trade shows. Guys come up and say, well, why you and not somebody else? And the honest answer is, hey, man, there's hundreds of guys across the country that can build you a half-minute gun. But how many of them can provide the service that we can, right? This is, like you say, vetted. This is vetted experience over multiples and multiples of success cases, because I do not deviate from what works. I'm not willing to hit my head on the wall the third time. It's just how we go about the shooting schools. I have refined a way that I could bring in any amount of people that may have, upper level experience to absolutely a novice. And by the end of the 2 days in that school, I will have everybody on that line hitting at a mile, because I have determined over time the exact steps and processes which every human body can go through to achieve a result. And if I don't ever deviate from that, no matter whether the ground is awkward or it's sloped or it's declined or inclined or there's a rock or whatever it is, if you stay to those fundamentals, you can produce first shot kills on game. So we teach it at the school and we let it roll into the field.
Having been at your class, I will testify to the fact that there are many people, every class you have, that have been to the class before. So that gives you an idea of not only how much value they think it is, because it costs money and it's not free. And so if they want to come back every year, they must feel that there's value in it. And the second point is, if it weren't enjoyable for them, even if they were learning something, they wouldn't come back time and time again to increase their skill level. So that's a great testament to the fact that you put together a great class that really works and that's fun too, and that the guys enjoy, and that's really cool. That's something that there isn't a lot of classes out there that can say that. I've heard people come back from all different kinds of classes, from some of the best teachers there are, that said, man, that was a grind. I learned a lot, but man, it was really tough. Well, you can get that guy once. You
Right.
Probably can't get him 2 or 3 times.
We didn't publish it all on our website or our web store this year that we did advanced schools. I think it's something that we'll publish next year. And the reason that we didn't do that is we gave basically exclusive invites to our previous level 1. We kind of made it a criteria. If you had achieved level 1, you were going to get an email invite to level 2. And luckily we had enough following that we were able to fill all of the spots for our advanced, what we call level 2. I think to some of the students that have been to other schools, and they say, man, your level 1 school is really about like a level 2, level 3, but you approach it in a way that you bring me from the bottom and get me to the top in a way that they don't feel so overwhelmed. Hey, enough about me. I'm looking at them stocks back there, man.
Well, because this is being broadcast as a radio show, we have to do a commercial break. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes. I'd ask all of our listeners to stick with us while we take a commercial break, and we'll be right back with you. Really enjoying my conversation with Bob Beck of Extreme Outer Limits, MOA Rifles, Rugged Ridge Gear, and now you've got
A few
Star
outfits.
Valley Outfitters. Name the others.
So we got Sheep Mountain Outfitters, and we're working on one in Idaho right now that I'm going to leave undisclosed for the moment. But Star Valley Outfitters in Wyoming and Sheep Mountain Outfitters in Oregon.
And the name of the yet-to-come website that you're working on.
Hunt Long Range.
Okay. Well, you see, this guy is a true entrepreneur. He wasn't satisfied with doing a television show. I was surprised when you came in from the construction business and basically as a contractor or a developer. I thought, what's this guy know about guns? What's he know? I've been hunting all my life. Well, you know how many times I've heard that, and what that means is a guy walks around once a year, walks around the field, tries to kill something, and he considers himself a hunter. Boy, was I wrong. You really had your stuff together, but you've really worked hard to put together the first full circle package for your customers, and I think that's really cool. But what we do here is we do nothing but fiberglass gun stocks, and we try to be the best we can. And we also try to come up with new stuff every year so that customers feel fresh when they look at our website and they say, hey, I got some really cool stuff out there, but I wanted to stock a rifle, and I'm looking for something new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my headset off. I'm going to leave the camera for a minute. Bob, you talk about what's new with MOA rifles and where this is going. It'll give me a chance to get the headset on and get behind the stocks, and then we can talk a little bit more from there.
Okay, sounds good. So where I'm at right now is, the market is growing and growing with the carbon barrel offerings. So carbon fiber is just kind of making its way into the industry altogether, and we've been in support of it because of our Rugged Ridge outdoor gear Extreme Pod has some carbon fiber qualities to it as well. So for years we'd used either the fiberglass or the edge technology McMillan stocks, and then Kelly's got a new process that'll be releasing too. But as we've grown into adapting carbon into our offerings, we had to get involved on some of your carbon offerings as well. So I do know from the clarity of this camera gear, I can see the first two are actually spec stocks for MOA rifles. Is that correct, Kelly?
Yeah, Bob, you're absolutely right. The first two of these stocks are MOA rifles stocks. And the reason that I picked them is because they show really clearly what our new carbon fiber stocks with the different camouflage look like. And now this is the Arctic, molded in Arctic carbon ambush. That means that the carbon fiber actually shows through the gel coat and in spots where it's black. And then we've also put the tan and the white to kind of show the Arctic type of finish. And this here is the standard carbon ambush. So this is carbon fiber underneath. You can see the carbon fiber through, and it has touches of gray on it. It makes a really nice looking camouflage. And both of these are game hunters, which you're using on one of the lines of rifles. Which line is that?
So we have our Extreme Carbon, which uses the Game Hunter, and then we'd actually had an ultralight steel-barreled rifle called our Summit. And one of the unique things I got to just take a second to plug is we work with Benchmark on all of our barrels, and they've been able to contour a carbon barrel down to what would be equivalent to a number 5. And because of that, with that McMillan Hunter Arctic ambush stock you have there, we are able to run same profile and even a slightly lighter rifle that we call the Carbon Summit.
And what's that weigh?
Oh, rifle only, depending on the caliber, right? So you got to understand the size of the bore can sometimes adjust the weight of the rifle, but we can get down to around 5 pounds, 12 ounces to about 6 pounds. And the cool thing is we're running a titanium muzzle brake on it, so it's extremely light, and we're not needing to cut down the barrel and lose performance to get that weight. That's actually with a 26 or a 27-inch barrel, so you're still getting complete Magnum performance.
That's great. And there's been some big advancements in carbon fiber wrapped barrels. When they first came out, when I was building rifles, I couldn't find any that would shoot up to my expectations, so we didn't put them on rifles. But they've made some really big advancements in the last couple of years, and there are some carbon fiber barrels out there that shoot really well.
I think consistency was the biggest concern there for a while, and I think like anything, right there, they've gotten much better at the process.
Yeah. Now, I just wanted to show a couple of other patterns for our viewers, and this is just our standard Woodland carbon ambush. This is one of the most popular that we make. Black, tan, and green, beautiful. I mean, Zev was drooling over this a little while before. This is our A thumb hole because it's got the A3 forend. I'm not a big thumb hole fan, but some people like them, and we sell a bunch of them. And this one here is basically we kind of stole this from the Alpine Cryptic new Alpine gear, and I was wearing it at Star Valley when I was up there. You saw the pattern that it was. This is really cool. It's got kind of some lime green in it, black and gray, so it really fits really well. So this is our Alpine ambush, and really cool. If I were going to put a new stock on my rifle, I'd put this one on it, and I'd get all duded up in my Cryptek ambush camo gear, and I'd be set to go. That's what we've got here at the table. I'm going to go back to the desk and sit down, and we'll finish our conversation from there.
Before you go, are one of those the new injection molded stocks?
No, I didn't grab one of those, but that we can talk about that.
Okay.
That we didn't grab one of those to have in here, but we've shown it on several of our radio and podcasts, so it just didn't occur to me. But yeah, we're not quite into production yet. When I decided to do the injection molded plastic stock, I knew I had to do it different, and that meant that I had to come up with a different process. So I had this brainstorm about how we could do it and make it better and make it different. But boy, did I not understand how much more difficult it was going to be to make it that way. And we're struggling with one particular part of the process.
It's funny how when you know, with any R&D project, right, you have an idea in your mind, and then to actually translate that to a finished product, sometimes you get going down that hole, and you got to ask yourself maybe once, twice, 10, 20 times, how much further do I go? And it's not for the faint of heart, right? I mean, you get to that point, you got to conquer it sooner or later, but these projects and processes can take some time.
Well, and when you go to a customer or a vendor and you ask them, can you do this? And they say, sure, we can. And so you get 3 or 4 months into the process, $15,000 or $20,000. And then they say, well, you know, we only hold 10,000 tolerances. That's pretty typical for what we do. And I said, but it showed right on the drawings that you looked at when we asked you if you could do it, that we need 5,000. And why didn't you notice then that this was going to be difficult? So that's the position we're at right now. We're struggling to try to figure out how to fix this one issue. And when that happens, we're going to start selling the heck out of them, because we've got lots of people waiting for them. So it's been a real good product, and the hunting line will come out in another couple months as well.
Okay, good. That's what I'll be very interested in finding out. You know, as the market evolves and trying to meet price points with different consumers, I'm going to be really curious about that particular stock.
I'm really looking forward to getting the MC3 stocks done. That's where I've been focusing most of my work. We've got a couple of new products out. One of the things that you might be interested in, obviously, we talked about maybe you shooting King of 2 Mile under the McMillan brand, and unfortunately, it happens over 4th of July this year, which you reserve for family time, and I appreciate that, and I totally understand. Maybe the next year we'll get you out to a match or two shooting. I know how you can shoot, and I know that shooting a 230 grain 300 Ultra bullet, you have to know everything that you have to know to shoot a 400 grain 375 or whatever. It's all about being able to get the gun to go off when you want it to, know where the bullet's going to be at the range that you want it to be, and how to determine all those things. I think it's important to know that just because you're shooting at an animal doesn't mean, as a matter of fact, I think you're probably better than a lot of those guys, because they're laying on a flat surface that's pretty much even, and they can put their bipod, and they got plenty of time to get it set up. And you improvise on everything that you do and can still come up with the shot that works. And that's what's incredible.
I mean, sometimes, admittedly, right, sometimes it doesn't go the way you want, and you got to navigate through that, and you got to hold your composure and just get that second round off or whatever it may be. But that is the one thing about doing what we do. You've got to be pretty flexible, right? You can't have your mind completely set in one direction, that this is how I'm going to take the shot, or that's where I'm going to set up, or that's the rock I'm going to lean over, whatever. Because, you know, animals move, they're feeding, they're walking, or maybe they're bedded, or maybe just the angle's not right, or whatever it is. You got to be pretty flexible. And when the opportunity comes, it might come right then. You know, that's all the time you got. And then on top of that, you've got to be constantly forward thinking with the animal of, is he going to be where I'm going to place that bullet through the time of flight, you know, that kind of thing. And so it doesn't always go perfect, but you gotta roll on the fly.
You know, I once made a statement how I didn't understand how people could miss a shot when they're hunting, because you hear a lot of stories about people missing, and I just couldn't figure out how that would happen, because you don't pull the trigger until you know it's a good shot. So if you're going to miss, why did you pull the trigger? Well, I found out why, and I can give you 3 simple reasons why I've missed shots. One, I was fatigued, being held in a position for a long period of time before I could pull the trigger. And by that time, my neck was tired, my shoulders were tired, my body was fatigued, and I just couldn't get the trigger to go off when I wanted it to, and I missed it. And it was at an elk at 850 yards. You were there. It was a beautiful elk, and you know the circumstance, so you know why I couldn't shoot it, you know, why I was on the gun for so long. It wasn't the best position to begin with, but having been on it for so long, I just got tired. Another reason was and this is not an excuse, it's just a reason. I was using a non-zero stop scope, and I had turned the zero the wrong direction. And so when I shot at an antelope 5 times at 500 yards, every time, you know, knocking down, you know, 2 or 3 minutes of elevation and still shooting over them. At least I was assuming I was shooting over them, because I wasn't seeing any bullet impact. Well, come to find out, I took it to sight it in, and sure enough, I was a full rotation too high. Had it been a zero stop scope, the first time, maybe the second time, I would have run that thing all the way down to the stop, then back up to the 7.5 minutes or whatever it was, and then I would have been more confident. But I couldn't do that, so and so that's the second reason. And the third was I just sighted my scope in at 200 yards, gave it to the guy in the shop and said, "Would you set my zero stop?" He asked me, "Do you want to set it a couple of clicks low?" I said, "Yeah, that makes sense." Well, if you're sighting it in or 200 or 300 yards, and maybe you get a shot at 70 yards, you want to make sure you run it down to 2 clicks below zero. And I don't think that's necessary, but that was the thought. Well, when he set my zero stop, he turned it back to 2 clicks below and then set my zero there. So there again, I was 2 minutes over from where I thought I would be at 400 yards. So
it goes to show you, right, at some point, and we get busy or whatever, but you almost got to follow your equipment or your gear from end to end. You got to follow it yourself.
You know, Bob, I've really enjoyed our conversation. We talked about a lot of stuff. It seems like we've left a lot of things out, but you know, that's always good when you do a regular podcast. So we've got something to talk about the next time we get together. I know you've got a lot of big things going on. This is about the season where you start your shooting classes, so that's going to be real important for you. And then you get a little break before you start hunting again. So maybe sometime this summer we can get away, get down to Cabo and do some fishing.
I would love that. I would. It's definitely coming in the spring. It's going to get busy, and I am fortunate. Like the old days in construction, we always worked like crazy in the summer. That is a little bit of time I get to do some of the other things that are not work related. So anytime I can sneak out, you got something going, let me know.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Okay, Kelly. Well, I appreciate you having me back on Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. And for all you Extreme Outer Limits podcast listeners, we'll get this cut down and get it up here shortly. So we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, Bob. Enjoyed being with you.
All right, buddy. Take care.